I found an online community where people are doing DIY injectables on themselves. Filler, Botox, among other cosmetic procedures as well that are all typically done by professionals, and it is truly mind-blowing what some of these people are doing to themselves. Now, filler and Botox can be pretty expensive depending on where exactly you go to get it done and who's doing it to you. So people on a budget have found overseas stores where they can buy Botox, dermal fillers, and even fat-dissolving injections and have it shipped to their door. Then they give themselves these injections at home in the bathroom and skip the trip to the med spa. But is that really safe? I'm gonna go ahead and say no, I don't think it's very safe. And in fact, I actually think it's a little bit insane. r/DIY cosmetic procedures is a subreddit filled with people sharing their before and afters, tips and tricks, asking questions, and just sharing posts all related to, well, you guessed it, DIYing cosmetic procedures. Now, before I had found this subreddit, I had heard of women doing their own lip filler here and there online, but I didn't realize just how big of an online community there is of people DIYing these procedures. But that is actually because they don't want us to know that they exist. Although having a public subreddit is not exactly very secretive, some of the posts on there make it very clear that they do not want people talking about this subreddit outside of the subreddit. One post on this subreddit actually reads, "I've started seeing many comments where users are like, 'Thank you, doctor, for this tutorial. I'm a DIY person and I very much appreciate it. You're exposing the community, causing YouTube, Amazon, and other sites to take down content and products. It's really risky, and I've heard of the FDA even investigating people for these. No need to tip customers either. Much safer to just enjoy your content and tutorials and resources without bringing this attention. I also think a while back, journalism started infiltrating DIY communities in hopes of getting tea to report on.'" Now, I'm sorry to the people who are going to be mad at me for making this video, but I do think there is some really good reason for this DIY content to be taken down and to not be promoted. People without a background in medicine should not be performing these kinds of procedures on themselves or anyone else, and that's it. End of sentence, full stop, shouldn't be happening. One argument that I did find on this subreddit for people trying to argue for why people should be able to do DIY injectables is that in many places, professional injectors don't have to take lengthy programs to become qualified, but instead just have to take a course that is maybe a couple hours long, and then they are qualified to become injectors. And while I don't disagree that that is true, professional injectors also don't come off the street, take that course, and then start injecting. In the United States, you need to be a medical professional with a license to practice medicine in order to even take the course to learn how to inject Botox. Now, of course, I do also need to note that the requirements needed to give injectables will vary depending on where exactly in the world you are. Obviously, I'm talking about the United States where you do need to have a medical background, but I don't doubt that in other places around the world, you probably don't need to have any kind of background in medicine to give injectables, but like I said, we are specifically talking about the United States in this example. But that being said, I still think there are a lot of very, very good reasons for why people should have backgrounds in medicine to be able to give these kinds of injections. There is just so much you need to know in order to safely be able to inject someone's face with something. The anatomy of the face, how to make sure the skin and tools are sterile, the proper depth, where to inject, where not to inject, potential complications, how to handle those complications, and so much more that I can't even think of because obviously I am not a medical professional. But I'm sure there's a lot more that needs to be taken into account. Now, if a nurse or doctor or someone who has like that extensive background in healthcare and medicine wants to take it upon themselves to inject themselves, whatever. You know the risks, you know what you're doing, you're a medical professional, you do whatever. But what I really have a problem with is this DIY community emboldening people who have no background in medicine or healthcare whatsoever to think that they can just go out and order Botox and filler online and start injecting injecting their face with it. It is just incredibly dangerous. There are actually even posts on this subreddit from DIYers warning other people to be very careful when getting into this kind of thing, because they acknowledge that maybe not everyone is cut out to inject themselves, which honestly, thank God. I'm glad there are people who aren't just like, you know, telling everyone that they can do this, because obviously they can't. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who are not exactly medical professionals who have been able to do the research and do this in a somewhat safe way, although not that I think they should do it regardless still. But on the other hand, I'm sure there are a ton of people out there who just realistically can't handle doing something like this to themselves, but still want to try it. Like, I know there are going to be people out there who just realistically can't fully grasp everything they need to know in order to do this safely, but still want to give it a try because they want to save some money and get those bigger lips or freeze their forehead. Some people just aren't equipped with the common sense needed, or some people are also just too lazy to do the proper research. One post I found even said, "The laziness of some of these comments and posts is astounding. If you cannot figure out stuff like the difference between Botox versus fillers versus exosomes, or what lines on a syringe mean, or God forbid how to use a freaking search bar, please do yourself a favor and leave these things to the professionals." Which, yeah, I cannot disagree with. If you don't know the difference between filler and Botox, you sure as hell should not be injecting yourself with anything. Now, this subreddit also has a lot of posts from people talking about where they buy their products they use for their filler and Botox and whatever other procedures. And this, in my opinion, is where I think doing these DIY procedures gets even more risky. When you are ordering these kinds of products online, you need to be so incredibly careful that the products you are getting are legit, they're sterile, uncontaminated, and are actually designed for medical use. Like, you cannot mess around with a product that you are literally going to inject into your face. Like, don't mess around with that. I think there's a lot of things that could go wrong with that. Like, God forbid you order some knockoff product that ends up being made of literal motor oil. Now, maybe motor oil is being a little bit over dramatic, but for real, in the United States, you can't legally order Botox, filler, or other injectables from the FDA-approved vendors because they all require orders to come from licensed medical doctors. So a lot of these products, depending on where you're getting them from, you really don't know what it is or if these products are truly safe. Some vendors online are going to be safer than others, of course, and I just hope that anyone who is ordering these products does a booty load of research and making sure they're getting their products from a reliable source, because this truly just sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. And in fact, I have even seen people on this website asking for recommendations from Temu. Literal Temu. Of all the places I would never want a product to be injected into my face from, Temu would be at the top of that list. This hurt my soul when I read it. Oh my God, it hurt my soul. It would have to be one of the dumbest things I could ever imagine for someone to willingly inject something into their face that came from Temu. I've actually made a whole video on Temu, so if you're curious about that, I will link that down below. But for the love of God, do not buy things on Temu and inject it into your face. I mean, don't inject it anywhere, okay? Not to mention, the person in this post looking for Temu recommendations was looking for something called a hyaluron pen, which hyaluron pens are a whole other topic we could make a whole video about, but essentially they are a way to do hyaluronic acid fillers that instead of using a needle to inject it, essentially this little pen uses pressurized air to shoot the hyaluronic acid directly into your face without a needle. But these are very problematic and dangerous and not approved by the FDA and not used by medical professionals anywhere, and they just should not be used. I could literally go on for like 20 minutes about how those are bad, but I'm not going to, okay? I'm gonna spare you today, but maybe in the future we'll talk about hyaluron pens, maybe. Now, aside from just DIY cosmetic procedures, I also found people in this subreddit talking about injecting themselves with vitamin B12 supplements designed for cattle. Yeah, it's meant for cows. I was truly speechless when I found this post, and I genuinely could not believe what I was seeing. Willingly injecting yourself with a product designed for animals just sounds insane to me. An injectable vitamin that is designed for animals is going to be held to a far lesser standard in terms of quality than the same product designed for humans. And just because you or other people on Reddit have been doing this and haven't had issues with it, doesn't mean you won't face complications down the line from injecting yourself with suspicious cattle vitamins from Amazon. And in the end, this whole DIY rabbit hole I went down to really just blew my mind and kind of scared me a little, if I'm being honest. Just because we can find ways to DIY things at home in order to save a little bit of money doesn't mean we always should. Everyone who is maybe considering doing some of these DIY at-home procedures, I really think just needs to double or triple think if it's really worth it and think about some of the risks that could come along with it. Now, obviously, I did not really talk much about the risks that could happen with doing some of these DIY procedures at home because honestly, there's just a lot. And I have also talked about the potential problems that could arise from doing like Botox and filler and stuff like that in general in other videos on the past. But like, you could get infections, you could get necrosis, you could really fucking botch your face. There's just so much that could go wrong. Even getting this stuff professionally done, there's a lot that could go wrong. But when doing it at home, you're really increasing your chances of something going wrong, okay? So in my opinion, it is just not worth it. I think it is insane to me. And maybe just because you've been doing it so far without any problems doesn't mean that if you keep doing this for years to come, you're not gonna have a problem. And I really just think, you know, this should not be promoted, okay? Don't do it. Don't inject yourself. Leave it to the professionals. Now, like I said, if you are a professional, if you're a nurse or a doctor, fuck it, inject yourself. You know the risk. But if you're not, for the love of God, don't inject yourself with anything unless you've been told to by a medical professional, your doctor. Okay. In the end, what do you think about these DIY cosmetic procedures? Is this something you would ever consider doing to yourself? Let me know in the comments down below and I will see you in my next video. Also, if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you went ahead and subscribe to my channel. I make commentary videos about all things related to pop culture, social media, and anything I'm feeling passionate about today. And today it was the wacky world of DIY self-injectables. It's a wacky world, that's for sure. But anyways, I will see you in my next video. Bye!